welcome everybody. Welcome to UWA. My name is Fadzi, and I am the Inclusion and Diversity Advisor for the university. So it's a real honor to have all of you here. Those of you who aren't part of the university, aren't staff or students, so we'd like to welcome you. And also to Speakers Tribe. So we have Sam, who you'll hear from later on, from Sydney, and we also have Zach, his lovely wife Jessie, cousin Amanda, and my fellow Zimbabwean Will in the house, so we'll get to hear from them. So a big welcome to all of you, and I think you all deserve a round of applause. So before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge that we are situated on Noongar land, and it's always, I think, a great honor to be able to show our respects to the traditional owners of the land. So if there's anyone from Indigenous background that is in the room, I'd like to say thank you. I think all of us can attest to the fact that for us to be here, family, tradition, there's so many people who sacrificed for us to be here. And it's with that I also acknowledge that I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be able to call Australia home if it hadn't been for the sacrifices of the Indigenous people of this land. And I'd like to thank all of you for braving the weather and for having such awesome dance moves. So tonight's Master the Art of Communication, and it's an initiative of the Inclusion and Diversity sort of team. Which is just me, by the way, so it's not really.
I want to be on that team.
Yeah. I was thinking, how can I make this sound like it's really, department team, I'm the only person. But anyway, I do have colleagues who are here supporting me, so I just once again want to say thank you. But when we talk about inclusion and diversity, a lot of the times we have specific things that we want to address. We want to talk about gender equality, we want to talk about disability, we want to talk about LGBTIQA+, and multicultural, and all of those things, and none of those things are wrong. But sometimes we also have to realize that within that, there's a lot of things that we can learn through the realm of inclusion and diversity. And tonight it's about, yes, it is an inclusion and diversity event, but all of us can benefit from learning how to communicate with influence. All of us can benefit, whether you have a disability, whether you don't have a disability, whether you are from a diverse background. The art of communication is something all of us really, really want to acquire. And so that is the reason why we're gathered here. And so I just want you guys to really feel at home. I want you guys to be open to some of the things that you would learn. And I also want you guys to help me in welcoming our guests who've traveled from out of Perth, because I've been bragging about Perth people, and tonight we have the opportunity not only of showing them, people like Sam, that they live on the wrong coast, but also that Perth people, first of all, we know how to dance, so that's a good thing. But we're always welcome to new ideas. So that's enough talking from me. I would like to introduce Zach Towne-Smith. Now, I met Zach a couple of weeks ago, or last month actually. My dates are wrong. I met him at the Hive Global Leaders Program that was at Harvard Medical School. And there were 120 of us, 49 different countries, very, very diverse group of people. But as I was sharing with him, and as I've shared with some of you as well, you go to a lot of these conferences and there's a lot of people, and there's always things that you take, some things you learn, and you just really never know what to expect. But for me, I go to these things and I always want to connect with people because I'm a connector. I love networking. I love connecting with people. I love thinking about this person needs to meet that person. So every time I go away to a place, I'm always thinking about, who am I going to meet and who am I going to be able to connect? And Zach was one of the people that I connected with at this conference. And we just shared a lot of things. And he has some mean dance moves, I've got to tell you. And to be quite honest, I kind of was like, geez, for a white guy, he knows how to dance. I was like, he's got some moves. So that was the first thing that I was like, okay, this boy knows how to dance. I've got to find out his story. And he's got an amazing story, and he's just such a generous soul. And that's shown through just in the conversations. And he mentioned that he was going to Bali, and I said to him, well, you can't go to our backyard and not come to Perth. Like, seriously, you've got to be able to come to Perth, because everybody in Perth goes to Bali, and Bali is just around the corner. So he managed to come, and we're so honored to have him. And I am really excited that you get the opportunity to be introduced to Zach. So please help me welcome Zach.
Thank you, Fudzy. Thank you all for being here. Yeah, as you can imagine, I saw Fudzy amongst the 120 people out. I need to get to know her. I think I sat down right behind her on the one of the first sessions and starting, trying to figure out what was up in Perth, what's going on in Perth. We also have cousins here, so it was really, really beautiful to be able to come visit Australia for the first time, and be in Western Australia for the first time, and be in the land of these ancestors, which I'm very grateful to be here for those reasons, and very grateful to Fudzy for bringing their traditions and their sacrifices into the space tonight. And to be with all of you, and really grateful and honored to have the opportunity to share with you a little bit of some of the stuff that's been bouncing around in my sphere. And we're going to do a little bit of interactive exploration of these things, so be prepared. No dance moves will be busted out, so that's happened. We'll wait till after to do more dancing. So I'd like to start by telling you all a story of when I was about 5 years old. My family would go to down the shore, which is what we called it. I grew up in Philadelphia. We were about 2 hours from the New Jersey coast on the Atlantic. And we'd go for about a week every year with my dad and his family. And it was a big family, and we were in a little house. And just amazing memories from those times. But one of the most clear memories I have is of my uncle, who was a great, very gregarious, funny guy. I called him Uncle Wild Times. He comes down from the upstairs one rainy day where we're just kind of lying around, and he's got nothing but his underpants on and a towel wrapped around his head, and he's probably singing some crazy song, because that's what he did, just like running around. And I jumped up and I said, "That's stupid. Let's do it." And I jumped up, and I didn't have a towel, so I probably just took my underwear off and put them on my head and ran around the house yelling whatever it was that he was yelling. And that became actually a motto for our family. That's stupid, let's do it. And I share this with you to begin this talk on mindfulness, because I really want to remember to bring this idea of loving playfulness and playful loving into our lives more and more. And that when we talk about mindfulness, it can be easy to get into this kind of a heady place. And actually, to begin, I'd like to begin in this heady place with an exercise to look at what we're talking about when we talk about the mind. What is the mind? So to begin, I invite you to close your eyes. If you're more comfortable with your eyes open, you're welcome to keep your eyes open. And when I count to 3, you're going to banish all thoughts from your mind and think about nothing, okay? 1, 2, 3. All right, now I invite you to, if you've got nothing in your mind right now, you're not thinking about anything, you're not thinking about purple kangaroos or whether or not there's going to be more food when we get out or whether it's going to be raining. If you're thinking about absolutely nothing, no thoughts in your mind right now, raise your hand. Wow, that's pretty impressive. You can open your eyes and take a look around. There's not too many of us that have achieved this miraculous feat. You all must be very practiced meditators. I am like the majority here, that my mind just kind of runs around. And in Buddhism, they call this the monkey mind, right? The mind that swings from branch to branch, from thing to thing, from all the different things that we're talking about. And the goal of this style of meditation called mindfulness is to be able to be an observer of what's happening without latching on to any one of those things, right? To let the thoughts float by. And that's one style, and that's all good. And the premise of that style of meditation is that by practicing this observation, we can slow down the rate at which thoughts come, until eventually we get to the place where the few people who raise their hand are, which is that you can just drop into this space where no thoughts come, right? It's a long ways. But many of us, myself included, for the first time, try meditation and get really frustrated by the fact that the thoughts keep coming, right? And there's this monkey, and the monkey is jumping around, and what's happening to the monkey? And if you've ever been to the monkey forest in Ubud, you know that these monkeys aren't really something that you want close to you, right? They're like kind of these little rascally guys that come around and try to take what you've got. And I'd like to shift our perception of what our mind is and think about it more like a puppy. So think about the fluffiest, cutest little puppy you can think of, and that's your mind, okay? So you sit down to meditate, and you're like, okay, puppy, stay here. Don't go anywhere else. And what does a puppy do? Jumps over here. Right? Okay. Now what do you do when the puppy jumps over there? Do you say, stupid puppy, get back over here. I told you to be over here. What are you doing? You're not good at meditating. No, you say, oh, okay, puppy, it's okay. Come on. Okay, put it down again. Oh, okay, puppy, come on back over here. Right? So it's a puppy, not a monkey. And the puppy, as we love this puppy and cherish this puppy and nurture this puppy, can eventually grow into the idea of a faithful companion, right? That serves us. Man's best friend is a dog, but before it's a dog, it's a puppy, right? And this is the idea of practice and how we can get there. So this is just a little shift in this idea of how we look at meditation. But I'd also like to explore, when we talk about this mind, when we drop out of our mind and we allow this mind to silence, where does the wisdom come from? What are we talking about? If I'm clear that I'm not my mind, I'm not my thoughts, then what am I? And it's interesting, Plato has a very, very interesting look at what the soul is. He talks about 3 elements of the soul. One is your rational thought, right? And he talks about that as a charioteer in this beautiful golden chariot with the reins. And at the end of the reins are 2 horses, a black one and a white one, right? And they've got wings. They're these amazing Pegasus-like horses. One of these horses represents our passions, and one of these horses represents our appetites, right? And so these passions, we can say, are like our emotions or our heart. And science is supporting this more and more with the idea that our hearts actually have about 40,000 neurons in them, that they perceive more quickly than our brain does. As we're developing as a fetus, our heart starts beating before our brain has even begun to develop. So this heart, that we can know things with our heart, and we can perceive things with our heart, in fact, quicker than our mind. So that's supporting Plato's idea of this passion horse, right? And then you've got this appetite horse. We've been having some treats outside, so you may perceive your appetite in a different place. I was a little nervous before I started talking, so I decided not to eat anything. So my appetite's in a different place right now. But it's okay. We actually have 500 million neurons in our gut. 95% of the serotonin we have in our body is in our gut. What's serotonin? It's what gives us the sense of pleasure, right? So understandably, when we make a gut decision, it's not just talk. It's actually, we have some knowledge and some wisdom in this part of our body that we've been taught since Plato needs to be controlled by a charioteer with very strict reins, right? It controls these passions and these appetites. Don't let your sexuality become too big. Don't let your emotions become too strong. Control them, rein them in. And this flow of civilization has led us to a place where we can control our environment in astounding ways. Look at where we are. It's raining outside, and we don't feel a drop. It's cold. We're in this beautiful new building that's been constructed in a way to control the environment around where we are, right? And that's sort of the legacy of the Greeks. And before the Greeks, you can understand at that point, he was really trying to separate the Greeks from the barbarians, right? The barbarians had this religion that thought that everything was alive and everything had a spirit, and that the balance was more important than control. And my feeling today is that we need to move more back towards this, seeking out this balance, right? That if we have these two amazing steeds that have wings in front of us, what are we doing trying to control them with the mind? They know things, right? They can take us places that we can't imagine yet with our mind. And so that's what I like to think of when I think of this idea of less mind brings more fullness. And I toyed with the idea of calling it mindlessness, but it's not mindlessness. There needs to be a charioteer there. He's useful. The mind is a beautiful, beautiful servant. It's a terrible master, right? So how can we get into a place where we're balancing these things more? And I see some of you looking at me intently, some are smiling, and I understand. I'm sort of presenting some new ways of thinking, and as Buckminster Fuller says, when you want someone to think in a new way, the best thing to do is give them a tool. And so I've been studying creativity for about 15 years, working on ways to develop creativity in people, organizations, communities throughout Guatemala and Central America, and more in the United States. And I really feel like this tool that's used in creative problem solving is one that can help give us access to a better balance between our rationality, our passions, and our appetites. So it's a really simple tool, actually, and it's based on the idea of balance. It's based on the idea that there are two kinds of thinking that we can do. And again, as we get more and more advanced in our ability to look at what's happening in the brain on a neurological level, this has been corroborated, right? That there are two different ways of thinking that are very distinct. One is what I call lunar thinking. And lunar thinking is what I was doing when I was playing with my Uncle Brian, right? I was just saying the most crazy, ridiculous things like, that's stupid, let's do it. And irrationality, absurdness, playfulness, anything comes to mind, the lack of judgment, don't say no. This is lunar thinking. It creates lots and lots of possibilities, right? On the other hand, we have solar thinking, which is convergent, right? It's how we choose, it's how we discern, it's how we decipher, it's what you're using right now. This guy, what's he talking about? I'm not sure if this makes sense to me or not, but I'm going to give him a chance. I'm thinking about it. I'm using solar thinking, right? And so when we talk about a creative problem-solving process, we're talking about using both kinds of thinking, that both are very important. Has anybody ever heard of brainstorming before? Yeah, brainstorming is like cholesterol. We've all heard of it. We just don't often know that there are two kinds, a good kind and a bad kind, because most of us have only experienced the bad kind, right? So brainstorming is essentially the separation of these two kinds of thinking. It's saying that in our normal life, we often do both kinds of thinking. I'm thinking about what I can, the best example of this is we were with my wife Jessie, we have a retreat center, and we were sitting with our parents. I was facilitating my in-laws in a process. I know that sounds ridiculous, but it actually happened. And we're sitting there being lunar, right? We're thinking big about what we can build for people to stay in when they come with us. And we're thinking about, massive pine cones in the trees, and we're getting playful, and we're kind of joking around, and cabins is on there as well. We got Post-it notes, and somebody says a teepee. And Jesse's mom, Mary, who's a pretty sensible woman, says, no, I've been living here for 30 years. We've tried teepees, it's not gonna work. It's too wet, And so we actually have a thing we do. We put lavender essential oil in a spray bottle, and whenever anybody says no during a lunar session, they get a little spritz. So we spritzed her, and she moved back into this open space where she wasn't closing down anymore. And we got to the place of, okay, well, teepees, it's on there. All right, and then because teepees was on there, somebody else said, oh, what about a yurt? And a yurt is a Mongolian sort of conical structure that's sort of like a teepee, sort of like halfway between a teepee and a cabin, and it got up there. And was up there and we were thinking about it, and we actually started thinking about it more and more, and the yurt became really interesting. And we decided that it was actually going to be too expensive to make a yurt. We didn't know anybody nearby with a yurt. and we moved back to the cabin idea. But then a couple weeks later, we ran into somebody that was looking to sell used yurts. And that's kind of the way the universe cooperates with you. You've probably heard of the law of attraction, right? I have sometimes trouble believing the law of attraction, but in my experience, it really does happen. And so because we were able to be open to teepees, we moved on to yurts, and yurts became what we have 6 of now at our retreat center. And so this is just one example of the way that separating thinking out between lunar and solar is really important. It can really move us forward in new ways. So I'm going to invite you all to participate in a little activity. I mentioned that there are different neurological processes. So just like our physical processes, if you're sitting and you're about to go play football, what do you have to do first? Warm up, exactly. So I'm going to give you a quick game that's going to warm you up. But I can't have you play the game and then explain the next step, or else you'll warm up and then move back into solar thinking, right? So this has to be something that's expansive. So I'm going to explain the instructions of the second game to you, and then I'm going to explain the first game. We're going to play the first game and then quickly move into the second game. Does that make sense? All right. So the second game, you're going to need something to write with. So find a piece of paper or something to write on. If it's your phone, that's okay. I recommend the tactile nature of writing if you have it, but if a phone is what you've got, that'll work. Thank you, Fudzy. So while you're getting pens and papers, I'm going to explain the game, and then we'll move on, okay? So this game, I'll call it a game. It's an activity. You're going to write things down that you are thankful to yourself for. This can be anything from managing to get a shower today before leaving to work to hitting that winning baseball. You guys don't play baseball. Hitting that winning, what do you call it, a run, a cricket run or something? Win, you know what I mean. Anything that you want to thank yourself for throughout your lifetime, write it. And we're going to use brain writing, which is a way of tapping into that lunar place. You don't edit what comes to your head, you simply write it down. So in brain writing, I recommend that you don't stop the pen or the pencil from moving. If you run out of things to say, you write the last thing you wrote over and over again until something comes into your head. So I'm going to give you some time to do this. And again, so that's the activity we're going to do. We're going to do a warm-up. And then when I say go, you're going to start writing, okay? Got it? So the warm-up is like this. It's a game we play with 2 people. So turn to someone, find a partner. If you need to skip a row or something or an aisle, and raise a hand if you don't have a partner. It's best played in 2s. At a pinch, it can be played with 3s. So if you don't have a partner, raise a hand. You guys can be 3, okay? You guys can be 3 as well. Great. So this game is called Free Words. You're going to play with your partner, and you're going to say words back and forth as quickly as you can. It does not matter whether the words have any relationship or not. They can have a relationship or not. The only important thing about this game is speed. That you're going to say word, 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 back and forth. If you would like, I recommend trying this in your mother tongue. It doesn't matter if the person doesn't understand you, because there doesn't have to be any relationship between the words, okay? Okay? So I'm going to give you some time to play, and then I'm going to do something. I'm going to clap real loud, and as soon as I clap, you're going to sort of switch back into your own space, look at your paper, and start to write things that you're thankful to yourself about. Making use of that activation in the lunar state, okay? All right, and begin. Play. Okay. Snap into your own space. Take advantage of that lunar flow you've got going on in your brain and start writing things you're thankful about to yourself. Okay, one more thing, and then close your eyes. And notice what's happening in your heart space right now. Just notice, observe. Allow the puppy to sniff around. What's happening in your heart? you feel called, you can slowly blink your eyes open. It's a palpable difference in the room, no? So essentially what we did is that we played a game which perhaps put us up against our blockages to flow, right? Or maybe our society has told us from early on that we need to say the right thing, so we don't say anything. We censor ourselves. And when we play this game, Free Words, I recommend playing it with kids, particularly like 5-year-olds. It's amazing. They're so good at it. Playing this game can really help us get into this space of lunar thinking. And once we're in this lunar thinking, it's like, okay, the mind is ready to step aside and let the heart flow, right? And then we dropped into the space of thankfulness and gratitude. And gratitude is one of the easiest ways to find happiness. That's been proven over and over again, and you've just probably felt that, right? And so gratitude to yourself in particular is a way of opening up, and it's like putting your ear onto your heart and saying, actually, I'm listening to you, giving it positive encouragement. And you talk about, as a speaker, I really want to share my passions with people and connect with them. That's where we connect, right? Our hearts, our empathy. And so this is just a very, very brief experience that we've all shared together, in which we've kind of let go a little bit of the reins and given more space to that passion horse to fly, right? And now we're going to do one more activity, very briefly, to try to get into this gut space. And the way we're going to do it is by using some active listening. So when we do active listening, we are openly listening to someone else without giving them any, we're not saying, yeah, I know, that's me too. And we're just open, paying attention, listening to what they're saying. And then when they finish, I reflect back to them what they said. It doesn't have to be word for word what they said, but I'm also not adding in my perceptions. I'm just kind of serving as a mirror to them for what they say. So we're going to do that exercise with the same partner that we worked with. I am going to ask that trio there and this trio here to maybe find a way to get together. So we've got 3 duos. And this is the way this is going to work. You are going to share with the person, you're going to imagine yourself in the future, 3 years from now, the successful person that you are on your way to becoming. You're going to imagine this, you are in that place, and you're going to feel it, you're going to sense it, you're going to share what you're seeing, what you're feeling with the person. You're just going to talk. And you're not going to stop talking. And the person's going to be there listening. You're going to share from this future place of all the amazing, beautiful things that you're tasting, the experiences that you're having. And the person is going to sit there listening, and when I call time, they're going to share back with you what they heard. And then you'll have a chance to switch. Okay? So the person that's listening, I invite you to drop into your heart space. And the person that's telling the story, I really invite you to get into your gut space, because this is the instinctual path that you know is yours. And you're visioning it. You're creating it in your imagination. So as many senses as you can bring into this. Is there anybody else that didn't have a partner? Everybody else? We have an even number of people. That's wonderful. Auspicious. So I invite you to turn to your partner and make some eye contact to begin with. And drop into your heart spaces together. And allow the chit-chat to die. There's no need to connect on this level right now. This is something that we're allowing ourselves to go a little bit deeper with. And so the person with shorter hair is going to share first their vision. Okay? So go ahead. We don't have a whole lot of time. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to speak. Try to speak without stopping about what you feel and sense and smell and taste in this future 3 years from now as you're becoming your most excellent, bodacious, awesome self. Okay? And the other person is just listening, okay? Okay, come into silence. Take a deep breath into your belly. Feel it expand. You can pat it a little bit. Exhale. Take one more breath deep into your belly. And now the person that was listening is going to share back what they heard. A summary of what you heard. And slowly fall to silence. You're going to use your eyes, no words, nothing more than your eyes, to thank your partner for holding space for you to vision that and to get that out into the universe. Only your eyes. Beautiful. And take a breath. Feel that future as it comes closer and closer. And now we're going to switch roles. So now the person with longer hair gets a chance to share. And again, you'll have 2 minutes. And begin. And slowly come to silence. Take a deep breath. Feel how that feels. Observe. And now the person who is listening reflects back. And slowly come into silence. And now thank each other however you feel like thanking each other. It might be a hug, might be your handshake, might be just a namaste. And I think I've already overstayed my welcome, so I need to wrap up real quick. So if you'll bring your attention back up here, I'd just like to remind you that it's not about mindfulness and it's not about mindlessness, right? When we can come to the point where we're really channeling these 3 elements of our soul, we come into the soulfulness, right? Really soulful experience where we're manifesting the person that we know we have inside of us. And why do I do this? I don't do this because I want you to come to some any kind of transcendental revelation. I don't do this because I want you to be more productive at your job. I do this because the world desperately needs more people who are living their passions in ways that really excite them and that excite people around them. And talking with Sam about the way that he sees his vision of really igniting people and that ripples out in ways that's really going to change our world and enable us through the stories that our hearts have to share with each other to really make a difference and bring more conscious and loving humanity, a lovingly playful humanity that is willing to say, that's stupid, let's do it. Yeah. So thank you all for your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.